In the last 9 months, I've taken 3 30-day vacations, and my business didn't just survive, it grew. So if you're looking for ways to hire great people that won't just take work off your plate, but will actually grow your business for you so that you can remove yourself from the day-to-day grind, well then hang with me, let's go. All right, first things first, the number one thing that we want to hire for in business is proof of past performance. One of the biggest mistakes that I see entrepreneurs make, especially early stage entrepreneurs, and I'm guilty of this in the earlier phases of my career as well, is hiring for promise of future potential. In other words, they identify a gap or a role that needs filling and they say, you know who I think might be good for that? And then they want to go out and hire a friend, a family member, or somebody else that they know. Bring that person on board and now invest all of this time and energy trying to teach that person how to fill the role and to take on a set of responsibilities that they've never had to manage before. And if by some slim chance that person is able to actually do it, which is a rare occasion by the way, well then still that's all time that is lost in the business. And time is going to be one of your business's greatest assets. Instead, we primarily hire for proof of past performance. That means that we review resumes, awards, accolades, and we are specifically looking for somebody who has already done the job that we're hiring them to do, and they've done it successfully in some other company or companies. So they already come equipped with all of the problem-solving skills, the systems, the processes, the tools, the technology. In fact, they may even already know other people that they can hire within their team to help them solve the problem that we're hiring them to solve inside of our business. So that saves us tons of time and energy of training someone versus just acquiring someone who already comes fully equipped. Now, of course, there may be some exceptions to this. We do also still, promote from within our organization. However, one of the biggest mistakes or threats when it comes to promoting from within is that when you promote somebody, to just one level above their current set of competencies, well then typically what happens if it's not done effectively is that everyone lateral of them and down below them is now effectively filling the gap that is left behind, and now almost everyone lateral and below is now performing at just one level higher than their actual set of competencies, and that can create a fracture within the organization. So when we are hiring and promoting from within, one of the things that we're going to do is take time to fully understand all of that person's daily responsibilities and then backfill that position with somebody else that they can train to fill that role, and then promote them out of that role, making sure that we don't fracture the entire organization beneath them. So hire for proof of past performance, not promise of future potential. All right, number 2, arguably just as important as proof of past performance is to hire somebody who's a good culture fit, who has the culture and character that's gonna mesh well with the rest of the organization. In fact, to be clear, I would rather have somebody who is a great culture fit and only good in their role versus somebody who's only good culture fit but great in their role. And that's because most of the skills it takes to fulfill a role are skills that can be learned. Whereas what it takes to be a great culture fit, that's more character and mindset. And those are soft skills that are very, very hard to teach. So in other words, it's just easier to find someone who's gonna be a great culture fit out of the gate. One of the ways in which we do that is we create hiring pages like this. So this is an example of a hiring page that we put together when we are hiring for new sales reps for our sales team. So whenever we're hiring for a role, we typically will put together some sort of page like this where somebody can learn about the role online before they apply. Here you can see we talk a bit about the role, we talk about our company, we incorporate some of our humor and some of our own kind of flavor and fun into the explanation here. But most critically, right down here, we clearly say, here's how to apply. Number 1, read this. And here we have spelled out all of our company values, which, by the way, we very much live by. And so what we go on to say here is, hey, read all of this, and if this doesn't sound like something that you're gonna absolutely love, then you're probably not gonna like working here anyway. But if it does sound like music to your ears, well then we might be a good fit. And we clearly spell these things out. Things like beyond the call of duty, wherein we say that, we don't measure our work by the hours, we measure it when the job is done. Sometimes that means that we're willing to work nights, weekends, and potentially holidays too. Down here we talk about grit, that we don't shy away from challenges, that we step up to bat when called upon, that we know that everything is figure-outable, and we show courage, resolve, and strength of character at every turn. To be quite frank with you, we've had lots of people visit this page and then tell us that, oh, well, after reading through the values, I'm not sure this is a good fit. And we're not hurt by that. we are grateful for that. It is better to get rid of those people up front. A players play because they love to play. They want to win because they love winning. They want to be in an environment that is going to challenge them. And if somebody comes here and says, oh, I'm not sure if I want to work late nights and weekends and maybe even holidays, I kind of just want to put in my 9 to 5 and get my paycheck, well, then they're not going to be a good fit for us anyway. So we're not offended that they maybe decide that this isn't a good fit. We would rather than decide that now rather than after we've gone through the trouble of hiring them, training them, and investing in them, only to figure out months, weeks, maybe years into the process that they're absolutely miserable and can't fulfill the role. So here we clearly spell these things out, word for word, verbatim, and then we have them apply. Then when we get them on the phone during an interview, one of the first questions we're going to ask is, when you read our company values, which value or values stuck out to you most? And what specifically did you like about those? Then we're looking to see, did they actually read and consume the values? Once we know that, then we're going to ask, hey, do you have an example of where you've lived by that value in the past? As an example, one of our values is that we enjoy feedback for breakfast. So we're willing to give fierce feedback to our team members to help them grow and learn about how they could maybe improve in some of their roles. So we're willing to have the tough conversations. Can you potentially tell me about a time in which you've had to have a tough conversation with someone on your team? Who was it? What was the problem? And how did you resolve it? And we're going to look for specific examples wherein they can show through their actions that they are living by these values, so that we're hiring for great culture fits. And we're going to ask questions like that at every step of the hiring process. All right, thirdly, what we want to look for is attention to detail and great communication skills. And I think that these two things go hand in hand, because typically somebody who is a great communicator is so because they use a lot of detail in their communication. In other words, they're clear about what they expect, what they need, what they want the outcome to be, so on and so forth. One of the very simple ways that we test for that in our hiring process is right here. You can see here at the bottom of the page, there's a little button that says click here to apply now. And there's a very simple form to fill out to start the application process, just first name, last name, email, and phone. When they submit that, they go to a page that then says, hey, congrats on getting started with the application process. We have just recently sent you an email. Check your inbox and please reply back with 2 things, your resume and the number 1 thing that stood out to you about our company that makes you want to work here. History tells us that about 70% of applicants will only do one of those 2 things. And so we get rid of 70% of applicants right out of the gate at the very first step, because they are clearly showing that they don't have attention to detail. When they do include both things, we read that statement about what was the number 1 thing that stood out to you about our company. We read that very carefully, and we are looking for clear communication there. In other words, is it very clear to us that they read our page or they read about our company and they are very specific about what it is that has stood out to them most and why it makes them want to work here? Of course, as they move into the hiring process through interviews, we're going to continue to look for that skill set by asking tough questions or asking them to clearly communicate to us how they have maybe solved problems in the past at other companies, or worked with tough team members in the past at other organizations, so that we can see through the interview process that they use very clear communication every step of the way. Critical component to hiring somebody great. The next thing that we want to hire for is desire. Does this person have a strong desire to fulfill the needs of the organization and accomplish the mission at hand? And one of the tools that we use in order to do this is what we call a mission and RR document. The RR here stands for roles and responsibilities. So it's very common for businesses to put together a roles and responsibilities document or a job description when they're hiring. But being frank, those tools are basically worthless. Anybody can go to Google, look up a job title and find a description and a regular old roles and responsibilities, which all that does is tell them, what they have to do on a day-to-day basis in order to just fulfill the needs of the role. But what does it mean to look like a success in the role? That's what we really want to achieve. And so we want to go one step further and give them a clear mission that they need to accomplish over the next 12 months in order for both parties to know that this role was fulfilled successfully. So here, as an example, what we've done is put together the sales manager mission in RR. So we just recently hired a sales manager. So I pulled this up as an example, and we will put together this document as often as possible before we begin looking for someone. That way we can use it in the hiring process. So here as an example, you can see that under the mission, it says to assist in and drive $1 million of additional monthly revenue, achieving $3 million a month in sales per month for the company. So in other words, you need to achieve an additional $1 million a month in revenue inside of your role in the next 12 months. That's going to be the ultimate deciding factor over whether or not your role was a success. Then we go on to cover some of the key objectives to, manage and maintain a minimum performance standard within the sales team, as an example, to manage and maintain a quality assurance protocol, to ensure that we're only selling to qualified customers, so on and so forth. So not only do we provide a mission, but we also go on and provide some of the stepping stones that are needed in order to accomplish the mission. This way, it's very clear what their objectives are throughout the next 12 months. And then only down at the bottom do we put a roles and responsibilities set of tasks. So now what's happening is the person comes on board, and as they're going through the hiring process, we're going to show them this document. A players are excited by this. B, C, D, F players, not so much. They're the ones that look at this and go, wow, they have very high expectations of me. I'm not sure that I can do this. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to accomplish that. And they tend to shy away. But an A player who loves playing, who loves the game of winning because they love winning, they look at that and say, wow, I'm grateful that the company took this time to make it very clear for me what I need to accomplish in order for my role to be considered a success. That looks like a challenge, and I'm up for the challenge. And that's the type of person that you want to bring on board because they have the desire. Finally, one of the key skills that we want to hire for is great problem-solving skills. A business earns money in direct proportion to the quality of the problem that it solves in the marketplace. And as an entrepreneur, if you want to continue to evolve and grow, that means taking on new levels of complexity and solving more complex problems. Our ability to do that will depend a lot on the team that we assemble and their ability to take problems off of our plate so that the company as a whole can grow and evolve over time. There's several ways that we can hire for this in the hiring process. One that we use often is, hey, here's a problem that we're experiencing right now. How would you solve this problem? And then we can look at, what follow-up questions do they ask? What details do they ask for? And how do they think through the problem as a whole? And ultimately, how good is the solution that they come up with? Another example is saying, here's a problem that we're experiencing right now. Can you tell us about a time in your career when you've already solved that problem for another organization? How did you solve it? What things did you look at in order to come up with a solution? And how good was the solution ultimately in solving that issue for that organization? Or another way to do it is to simply assign a task during the hiring process, which is what this is an example of. Recently, when we hired a sales manager, I took this and what I did is I mapped out our entire sales process end to end. Then I shot a 15-minute video going over each step in this process. And I assigned them a set of tasks. I said, here's a few things that I want from you in return for this. One is I'd like to know what KPIs would you create exactly in order to make sure that you're measuring the quality of the process. In other words, how would you measure how well the process is working? Secondly, what KPIs would you create to measure the people inside the process? So specifically, I'm looking for what numbers do they need to see in order for them to make sure that not just the process is working, but that the people that support the process are actually doing and fulfilling their roles as well. And then I went on to say, I want to clearly know exactly what numbers you want to see in order to figure out and create the equations that are going to help you come up with that KPI. In other words, what I'm measuring for here is their ability to take a process and then convert that process into a set of numbers that can help us measure both the process, the people, and their ability to know which numbers they're going to need from different steps involved here and how they're going to create the equations that are going to ultimately help them come up with the KPI that is necessary. This helps me see where they're at in their ability to take a process and turn it into a set of numbers that is clear, defined, and measurable so that we can continue scaling the organization. So listen, if you got value out of this video, then make sure you watch the next video up in the lineup, because in that video, I'm going to go deep on the KPIs and metrics that matter most when it comes to scaling your company. And by the way, my name is Kal Kanai. I'm an entrepreneur that started out a few years ago working in a coffee shop for minimum wage, and I've gone on now to create multiple 7- and 8-figure businesses. And I say that so that you know that everything I share on my channel comes from the real world applied knowledge of the things that have helped me create those results. And I share them here in hopes that they help you create similar results in your life and your business as well. So if you're somebody who's serious about success, ambition, and really wants to go out and create something remarkable in the world, then go ahead and subscribe, hit that little bell notification so that you get notified every time I drop more content like this on a weekly basis. Make sure you watch that next video in the lineup, and I'll see you there.